for budget purposes, it happens a lot. But I love that challenge. That doesn't scare me. I actually really love that challenge. And the more they let me pull the characters away from each other in terms of timbre and other affectations, the more I love it. It just makes it that much more fun. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi again, Steve.
Hi.
This might be a bit of a generic question, but I just wanted to ask what your favorite role that you've ever done is.
Favorite role I've ever done?
Yep.
Whatever I'm working on Monday, because I'm still employed. That's true, really. My philosophy is that I put everything I have into every character that I do. And even if, I'm cannon fodder boy number 3, and I have a 30-second lifespan, I want that 30 seconds to be memorable. And sometimes they are in games and in shows. And so that has to become my favorite character in that moment. And choosing my favorite character from 30 years of this work would be like choosing a favorite child that, if you're in a dangerous situation, which one do you let go? And I'm going, no, I want them all. No, I like them. And they start fighting in my head too. If I choose one, the other ones start fighting in my head. And just, boom, it's just gonna explode. Yeah, so the true answer really is whatever I'm working on Monday is my favorite. But that said, Bebop Spike changed my life more than any other character.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi there. My question is, you were talking about pain and going into yourself and finding that vulnerability in you in those kinds of sessions. My question is, how do you keep yourself grounded with that? I mean, outside of Mary and the whole engagement thing, which, congratulations. And
oh, that doesn't help the pain.
I mean, it could, but I'm not here to judge.
That's a great question, actually, because for a lot of actors who've done any kind of acting, sometimes you do have to access that painful stuff. And to be able to pull yourself out of it is a difficult thing. For me, it's meditation. I use meditation for that. I've been meditating since I was in high school. And even if I only have a minute or 2 minutes before or after I'm going into a session, I'll just sit and close my eyes and I'll breathe and count the breaths. And for me, that is the thing that will settle me down, get me back into my body, or go outside. The other thing that I do often is go outside, and many of us don't do that enough anymore. Get off the phone, put down the ducky and go outside and just, smell a flower, look at a bug. My dear friend, D. Bradley Baker, who voices so many of the things that you guys love, he loves photography. He's got a little iPhone and with one of those little hollow clip things on it. And he'll go on walks and I've seen him laying down on the sidewalk taking pictures of bugs. He loves to do it. He gets these amazing close-up pictures of bugs, and it settles him, it settles his mind. Dee has a very active mind like I do. And each of us find our own thing to kind of get us back into reality, get us back into our body, and get us back into the present. And that's the harder thing to do, because I felt that when I would go to that place of vulnerability, I'd start analyzing my life too much, and I'd start thinking about all the pain from the past and anticipating what could be painful in the future. And I wasn't living in the present. And so for me, it's really about getting back into the present tense. And meditation has helped me a lot with that. So I actually ended up recording a guided meditation from the things that work best for me. And they're for sale at my table for $10. Or if you're in my classes, there's a guided meditation. I spent a whole evening on meditation. It was just part of my classes. Just simple breathing exercises and stuff. It's not woo-woo, it's not religious or anti-religious, it's nothing like that. It's just about getting back present and quiet, getting back to that quiet space. But thank you for that. That's a tough thing to manage. Okay, hi.
Hi. So my understanding is when you go in for an audition, you have like a character picture, a small script, and maybe some direction from the director. So just looking at that picture, is there anything that goes through your head? Is there anything you look for when determining what kind of voice to give that character? Or is it just like, oh, this is like a big lizard guy, I'm gonna call him Grunt?
Everybody works differently. I'm a very visual person first. That's a great question, actually. I used to work in a comic book store. My grandfather owned this big, beautiful bookstore in Hollywood. They had a comic book department, and my first job at 12 years old was sorting comics. And I remember even from back then, reading a Batman or Spider-Man comic or something, I could hear the voices in my head as I'm reading it, as I'm sure many of you do when you're reading manga or you're reading anything, really, any kind of novel or comic book. voices appear in your head of what you would imagine them to sound like if you haven't been tainted by some actor's interpretation of it on TV or on a cartoon. Before that happens, you guys are going to formulate something in your head. I do with everything. I have since I was a little kid, and I didn't know. I found that out later on when I was booked for Wolverine for the first time, because when I would read the Wolverine comics, despite what I had heard on TV, I would always hear this voice in my head, bub. That was it. But when I was first reading the comics, it kind of came out like that if I would try to do it out loud. Fortunately, by the time I was able to audition for Wolverine, just looking at that picture, that was the first thing that came out. And fortunately for me, the producer had the same voice in their head. It was as simple as that. And so it's not necessarily even that when you're auditioning, you're going to be better than somebody else's audition. It just may match what the creator of the show had in mind for the character. But yeah, it usually works best for me if I do have a picture. And a picture really does paint a thousand, what is it? A picture paints 1,000 words? Yeah. Or the other way around, something like that. But it does for me. If I look at a picture of a character, 1,000 different things pop into my head. Okay, so this guy is, he's really heavy, so it might add a little bit of heaviness to the voice. He might be muscular, so it looks like he might have a little bit more energy. So you might add a little bit of extra, oomph in your delivery to the voice. If it's an older guy, you just start aging it down and pull a little bit of that energy out. Maybe speak a little slower with a little more space between the words. Sort of like Shatner, that type of thing. But it really can't inform, for me, that's the best information I have, is if I have a visual. Unless they're playing against that completely, and that's when you rely on the director and the specs they give you in the script. But sometimes you don't have all three of those things. Sometimes you only have a picture, sometimes you only have like a 3-word description, or sometimes you're relying specifically on what the director says. Sometimes you don't have anything. They just say, do the first thing that comes to mind. You have to read that line cold and hope for the best, see what comes out. So I do a lot of cold reading with my students just to see what their first impression is of something that they've never seen before. It's kind of amazing to see what comes out. If you've ever done improv, it's a great exercise to do that. It really helps you to stop analyzing, to stop analyzing stuff and just do it from the gut. So that's my process. I'm just an organic guy.
I know I'll never be the same. Shook my world so hard again. Wish I washed away my sins. He's a dead man walking, blank stare in his eyes. Should have given up on the ones I trust. Never should have been surprised when they shot him down. Cold blood to the ground.